Good afternoon, Miami, and welcome back to Recharge Your Life. I'm GIO, and I'm your community health and life coach, always bringing you the tools and resources on how to recharge your life, but really how to balance your well-being. So today, let's just jump right in because we've got a lot of juicy stuff today. My guest, please welcome her, Daisy Blanchard. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, wonderful. Happy to be. It's summertime, first day of summer, and I'm that girl. I am solar powered. So this was a great invitation. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
And so happy to have you because one of my goals is to bring these stories and highlight those out there that are just trying to make it work, right? Trying to live their purpose, trying to step into what they're meant to do while balancing everything in their life, right? And so to me, it's so important to highlight everybody's story. And we're going to talk about what you do because you actually impact in that similar way. But before we get started, please let everybody know who's Daisy. Tell us about you.
Okay, I would love to do that. So it's interesting when people ask, I think that's like, people think that's an easy question to answer. And it's not that easy sometimes, especially when you're someone like me who is multi-passionate. So I love saying that I'm a creative soul.
Yes.
And depending on what stage you are in your life, I would answer that question differently. So I am a proud mom of 3 boys, and I always hashtag mama boys. But now I have 3 teenagers, so that's a big story in itself. I'm also a realtor with a heart. I've been in that business now for over 30 years. It was kind of like a nice to have, which became a must have. I work with Sotheby's. So I love saying that I find homes. And it's a beautiful business to be in South Florida right now. So that was a great tool, right? So you'll hear that a lot in our conversation. Like, I think when you ask me who you are, like there's a lot of tools that you get in your life throughout your career that make you and keep you continue to become someone special, right? Besides that, I did launch a passion project a couple of years ago. So I'm also a podcaster of This Girl podcast. And I'm also a wife, a daughter, a hell of a friend. So when people say, who are you? I think there's so much encompassing, especially somebody like me, that you say I wear lots of hats, although I love to say I have lots of pockets, hence my hashtag, pocket full of Daisy.
Yes.
So in reality, I am like a multi-passionate, creative connector. I connect people in so many ways, from my family life to my personal life to my career life.
Yes.
So we're living in a very creative world these days. So I love to I don't have to pick one.
Yeah.
And I think we're always challenged, like, pick that one. Well, I'm not that girl.
Yes.
And I am going to hashtag and give a shout out to a beautiful thought leader, Marie Forleo, which I'm sure you probably know her and people here. And Marie Forleo kind of gave me that insight. You don't have to be just that one thing.
Yes.
And I'm not that one thing.
Yes.
I happen to be a lot of things.
Yes.
And I love all the things that I do.
And what a great segue, right? And really the first call out or shout out that we can express out there that you don't have to limit yourself. It's limitless. And you can find ways to do all the things that you want to do, be all that you want to be. And because I do have a little bit of a cheat sheet, I do know a little bit about you and all that. One of the reasons why you're here, right? Really to share your story and kind of, the things that you're doing and passionate about. But if we just go back to some basics, for example, are you from Miami?
Okay.
Tell us just a little bit of your background.
So I am definitely, in fact, that's why I'm so happy to be housed here at the Miami Community Newspapers studios, because I am a born and raised 305.
Woo!
So I'm through and through Miami, Florida, Cuban descent. I went to high school here. I did have a stint away. I went to American University in Washington, D.C. And I was, if you really want the whole story, I was a career woman. I was in PR. So again, a shout out to community newspapers. They were so, so wonderful at the beginning of my career to publish a lot of my stories for my clients. We became really, really good friends with the Miller brothers. So coming here today was kind of really dear and warm to my heart because it was the beginning of my career.
Wow.
And it's interesting that that happened, right? So then I worked at NBC, I worked at Discovery Networks, I traveled all of Latin America. I had this beautiful, beautiful public relations media career. Then I met Mr. Wonderful, got married, and had 3 boys. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So when I became a mom, I have to tell you that it was what I've always dreamed of. But I felt as a woman, and I think there's women out there that when they would ask me, so what do you do?
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I'm a domestic engineer. Well, I am a, chief operating officer of the Blanchard residence. And I caught myself like wanting to say something more special. Yet I can confess today that the best title I've ever had and the hardest is that of mother,
Mhm.
which brings us a little bit where our conversation's going today. Because I love that you use the word balance, and I struggle. I resist that word, by the way. I do, because I think people try to find that perfect balance, and I feel life is an ebb and flow
Mhm.
more than
Absolutely.
a perfect balance. And so, our dear fierce
Yes.
leader, the
Absolutely.
Luli B with her, balance is bullshit. And I think there you could find a certain balance, and we'll talk about that because I'm sure
Absolutely.
you have, as a health coach, could probably give me some insight. This could be a therapy session, everybody, if you're relating. So it was then when my kids were a little bit bigger and I sat down and I was craving more creativity. I was craving to be more purposeful
Yes.
with my God-given gifts that I
Mhm.
was like, I could be a mom and I could still serve. I come from a place of service.
Of course.
That's who I am in my
Yes.
nature. So that's hence how I started. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a blog. Hashtag Mama Boys. I'm going to give back in the field that I'm in right now.
Yes.
And hence that kind of developed into my and people who know me, they're like, I'm a talker, not a texter. And my husband's like, you don't even have time to have lunch. How do you think you're going to blog? And that's where the podcast ended up being born.
And came in. So we're going to pause right there because I don't want to get into the podcast quite yet. I just want to step back a little bit and just really speak to what I heard from you. And that is, you started in one place, then found yourself in a transition, and then figured out what was next based on where you wanted to go to be in line with your purpose. And I think that's a great message for others out there, that there's certain times in our life that we do find ourselves in transition, whether it's into motherhood, whether it's after a job, whatever it is, right? Because that's life. That's what happens. And I think that that's the beauty of it. Number one, to let people know that, look, we're always in some kind of transition. And you just called that out for yourself, in that at some point, just like a lot of us, we look up and say, okay, what's my purpose, right? How can I exercise that as well as impact others? Because I know that that's a part of me, right? So, one, kudos to you for knowing who you are and listening to that, and then going and experimenting and stepping into that.
But I'll tell you, it wasn't that easy. And talk about going back to limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
right? So I get resistance from old school parenting and old school or, friendship saying like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? Um, you know, specifically from family, sometimes it was like, you're a mom, spend time with the kids, like don't get distracted.
Mhm.
And I think that's like the modern day mother can do both. I think the older generation, maybe from my mother's generation, it was they were bred to be housewives. And by the way, shout out to all the stay home moms too. I think that's a privilege. It's a luxury.
Mhm.
But if you happen to be a multitasker, multifaceted individual who wants to do, there's room for that.
Absolutely.
And it took me a while to give myself permission
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
Because every time I went into the professional sphere or wanted to attempt to do something new, there is only so many hours in the day. So there is a
Yes.
truth to something has to give at a certain point. But if you have a good partner, if you have people that support you, and it's something that you're trying to be true to you, you will always find the time. But it didn't come
Yes.
easy. It's with a struggle and it's with a choice.
100%. And it's going through the testing and tweaking and figuring out and the ups and downs. And back to, again, my message to the audience, you're not alone. We all go through this some kind of way. So I want to start leaning in a little bit into your project, your passion project. Sorry. And because real estate is part of your life, motherhood is another part of your life. And there's between real estate and your podcast, they're fairly big buckets. So I want to get into a little bit of this podcast, right? The creative soul woke up one day and said, I think I'm going to try a podcast. Tell me how that kind of came about. How was that? How did you birth that?
Okay. I will tell you, Gio, that the birthing and where I am now is a journey.
Mhm.
Okay. So I would say about 5 years ago, believe it or not, I thought after 40 people didn't have babies. And I had 3 boys and I always wanted 4 children. And I got like this itch in my soul that I needed a girl, that I wanted a baby girl. I needed a baby girl. And people who know me, it was not easy. And by the way, I wanted 4 children. It wasn't that I wanted a girl, but I guess at the age of 40 something, a lot of my friends were having babies and they were all having girls. So I was like, oh my gosh, I think I need to do this.
Mhm.
So that's a whole story in itself. And it was a process. I didn't know it was the biological clock. I didn't know what it was. I had a very spiritual dear friend of mine that was like, Daisy, you're being too literal. Maybe it's a project. It's so funny that you said talk about the birthing. That's why I decided to go this way. And I was like, okay, I again trying to get myself distracted, I think was a little bit at the time,
Mhm.
because there was this yearning inside. There was this yearning to be creative. There was this yearning to want to produce something.
Mhm.
And I, at the time, thought it was maybe I wanted a baby because I love babies and I never got closure, FYI. But it goes full circle. So at the time I was like, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself. I was the head of the PTA. I was like, oh, the hashtag Mama Boys. I want to do something where there's a space. I saw that moms were just always busy. They didn't have a pause in their day. And I started through, believe it or not, digital media was with the Instagram. So that was my creative outlet. And I joined a couple of challenges where you had to capture like the photo of the day.
Mhm.
So I would do that creatively. And then I started getting feedback from like friends and be like, you made my day. I love what you wrote. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It changed the mood of my day. And all of a sudden I was like sharing that with my husband. I was like, it's so funny. I just put this thing and I'm getting a following. And so it just really started very organic. And then I was like, babe, I think I should do a blog. And then that's when he was like, well, sweetheart, you don't even have time with the 3 kids and everything that's going on. Like, I love that you do this fun. So it was kind of like
Mhm.
just an outlet for me. And he's an avid podcast listener, like it's part of his morning walk. And he's like, I think you need a podcast. And I was like, a what?
What is
He's
that?
like, you got it. What
Yeah.
is that? And he's like, that's what you're great at. You're a born communicator. You love talking. Everybody wants to talk to you. You know so many girls. You know so many resources. I really think you should have one. And I kind of just blew it off. And for Christmas, he actually made a studio for me. And in the inception, he's my producer, So it started off that he got me the mic and he goes, okay, I'm going to get back and talk about something that I love. And let's see how far we can go.
Okay.
Podcasts tend to be anywhere. I mean, there's really no rules, but a good one, you could be anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. So let's see how you can do this.
Okay.
He gets on. He loves Tesla. He loves Elon Musk. I go, why don't you get on and see how far? After like 3 minutes, he was like, oh, this is not as easy as everybody might think it is, right? He goes, why don't you get on and let's see if we can make this happen.
I'm almost willing to guess what happened. I don't know the end, but I'm willing to guess. I don't want to spoil it, but go ahead.
Sure enough, I had just gone back from New York, and Daisy, I think my epitaph might have a couple messages, but one very different to Audrey Hepburn. Mine will say hashtag New York is always a great idea. So I had just gotten back from New York City, seen Dear Evan Hansen, seen Moulin Rouge. Like I was on just a creative recharge. Talk about recharge your life. Like New York does that for me. So I said, sure, let's talk about this. And I talked about my trip in New York. All of a sudden he looks, his eyes are huge. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, it's been 40 minutes. He's like, you got this in the bag.
Wow.
Because you got this in the bag. So I always do vision boards. And with a dear friend of mine, Mindful Wisdom now, my dear friend, Gabby Martinez Fonts. And I said, Gabby, why aren't you my first guest? And let's talk about, it's the beginning of the year. Let's start talking vision boards. So we did that. And then I just started and it was going to be all about parenting,
Mhm.
motherhood. And my philosophy, even today, because I will tell you the evolution now, just like that was the inception, was I always wanted to educate,
Mhm.
inspire, connect, and spark conversation.
Mm.
Like I was like, let's talk dirty, let's talk boys, let's talk sweat, let's talk everything they do, and I felt,
Let's be real.
let's be real. I said, I want moms to come on and, kids mess up and it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. So when you are, and you know this, when you put your heart and soul in something, the universe responds. So I just started getting people to
Wow.
want to talk to me. And I was in the right networking circles where they were like, Daisy, why don't we talk about nutrition? Daisy, why don't we talk about vaping when it was first? Like I had a neurologist, Dorison, when it was the beginning of Juul, which was like a crazy
Yes.
epidemic. And believe it or not, because of the press, they did end up changing legislation for that one. But anyway, that's a whole like subject matter, which from the day that I said the story, almost like broke the story, to today, it's been like she's like, it's going to be an epidemic. It is. And it's horrible where it went.
We could probably do an entire segment on that. Yeah.
Which we should maybe, like we could footnote that. So it was beautiful. So then, as you know, because I think you and I met like 2019 going into 2020, I was like in flow. When you're in a passion project, it was in flow, but I happened to have it joined Boost because I wanted to take it to the next level, right? I was like, they say you don't have a business until like your hobby starts, kind of making the cash register ring. But I wanted it to be organic. I didn't, I was still, how I am. I wanted to serve.
Absolutely. And just so that, our audience is fully aware of when you said Boost. So Boost is a women's mastermind that's led by Luli B, who's a phenomenal business coach who really brings women together to help them with their business and really live their fullest potential in life that they want. And that's how we met, because she focuses on entrepreneurs and just women who just want to create. So go ahead.
And I have to tell you, it's beautiful to sit here today and see our transformations, because I'm talking about my project, but the project is an evolution, right? It's been a total transformation on when I started to where I'm going. So I thank you for the invitation, because nobody really knows the story yet. And in 2020, here is, who knew? Like, I thought this was going to be the best year yet. I started with Oprah. Like when she came into town, it was my year where I hit the 5th floor. Like I was like, this is going to be it. This is my year. And then we got the pandemic. And talk about that. My show was based on a pause for moms in particular, or women, to just take in information in a time when they were in the, because it's mobile, so you could listen to it everywhere. And I was here to serve and to give. And here I found myself frozen, right? Because a little bit, my tagline used to be, at least look at life on the bright side.
Yeah.
And there was nothing bright going on at the time for me and for many. So in hindsight, because hindsight is 2020, right? I kind of froze and I got stuck. And I could sit back now and say it was a content creation time for me. Although I think I needed to have been pushed maybe to show up ugly, everybody, and to show up sad, upset. But I felt at the time that the community I was serving, I had to serve them positively because it's in my DNA. And it was hard for me to show up like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be fake, and I didn't want to be unreal, and I needed to show up sad. And I don't think I was ready to show up sad, frustrated, because my number one like energy feeder is people and community.
Yeah.
And I was cut from that, So I'm ready to tell the story. I'm ready to share them and say, I was creating. I was in a state of almost like you could do it either a seed or a butterfly, however you see growth.
That's what came to mind.
However you want to see growth. In fact, that is my word for the year. It's grow. And it is because I was literally almost like just collecting, feeling the pain, feeling the confusion, feeling the disconnection, and how important that is.
Yeah.
For me and for so many. So I think now collectively I could come out and share lessons that we all shouldn't forget.
Yes.
Because I almost feel like we're back now in 2022, like even like on that treadmill going like 12,
Correct.
versus like 7,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe, a
Yeah.
slow jog. So I can't wait because it's, again, I'm falling into that ebb and flow,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
retreated. And now I'm kind of like blooming again and ready to talk about stories, but the stories are going to be different.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Evolution, right? Again, giving us a peek into you're human, you're normal. So many people can relate to that. And that's why I think it's so important to get your story out as well as others for our audience to say, wow, that's me, right? Because we need to be loud and boisterous about what we're going through in our journey. And that tomorrow, it's just not going to show up, right? It takes work, it takes evolution, all of that. So this is 4th season,
Yes.
I believe. Okay. So give us a peek. What is your vision?
So the vision is actually capturing a lot of my guests. Like I've been doing a throwback lately so that people know we're coming back. Let's see where people were. And I have so many guests that in the last 2 years have either written books,
Mm,
launched a coaching
mhm.
business, and kind of telling the story to moms and women that you can do it all.
Yeah.
I'm really like, I don't think you need to pick one. And I'm ready to tell the story and hear from the people, like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Even right now, funny enough, because people know J-Lo's I'm a fan. And I love that she came out with the documentary.
Yes, I just saw it this past
And
weekend. Loved it.
I love that you get to see sometimes the ugly side or to know the hard work that goes
Yes.
into it. And I think sometimes we're not getting that story out as women, that either they're successful and you think they don't have, it's not hard to be there, and obviously on the digital platforms, you see a lot of the goodness,
Of course.
which is great. But there's a lot of backstory. So I think you're going to see more backstory.
Oh, I love that. Ooh,
You're going to
juicy.
see, you're
That
going to
sounds
see
really
more
juicy.
backstory. I think you're going to see a little bit more of, we'll talk about the good, but I'm going to push them to give me the bad and the ugly too. Because I didn't want to show up bad and ugly.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to do it. So like the first episode will be my story to open the vulnerability and let everybody know it's okay. We all have hard days. And that's just, it's life.
It's life. And what I've learned as well is that when you sit in that vulnerability, right, and you sit in that pain, and you that's where the power is.
Yes.
That's where the birthing comes out of whatever's next, right? And I know that a lot of us are so used to not having that immediate result. We have to have a timing, all of that. But one of the things that I've learned recently that has really like just opened up my perspective and mind even more is that what context are you living in? So when you set out and want something for your life, are you narrowing that context so low, so small, in that you're putting a timeline to it, to saying in the next month, I'm going to do all this stuff. And what happens if you don't get there? Then all of a sudden you think you failed. No, open it up, right? Think bigger, push yourself to say, what can I do that I have no idea that I would even think about doing, right? And so when I think about that, I see your podcast because I've seen it, right? It's growing. And now the impact that it's going to have in those raw stories are just going to touch so many people, which then falls into how you want to make an impact, how you want to serve our community, right? And so what your vision is bringing back this raw podcast and the backstory. And so how does that align with how it feeds you with your purpose and kind of, what you have, I don't want to say what you expect of yourself, but what, I don't know, what your vision for yourself is as well too, where you want to be.
Well, I feel it's going to happen organically.
Mm,
And I do believe in divine wisdom and divine intervention. So I am pushing myself because it's not easy
yeah.
to forge this passion that I have, this gift that I have, because it happened. Clearly, I was in a state of pause, and the invitation came back. The invitation came back to get back on the saddle and do what you do, and you be the catalyst to let other people share their story. You be the platform
Yes.
to to be able. So I just see the power that I could help people connect,
Yes.
that I could spark conversation. I'm really big. I think it's hard to have difficult conversations. And if I can help people do that,
Mm-hmm.
if I could at least plant that seed,
Mm-hmm.
that conversation will then lead at home with a husband and wife. Money talks.
Yes.
I think money talks is something, again, the pandemic gave me so many lessons.
Yeah.
And so much content.
Yes.
That was uncovered, because I feel a lot of people were on automatic pilot, right?
Yeah.
So life was just going, left going. In this last 2 years, themes have come up, topics have come
Yeah.
up. Women have reinvented themselves. There's been this surge of mom entrepreneurs that they had to reinvent themselves. And those stories need to be told.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, even a lot of people got divorced.
Yeah.
Like, they realized, like, this is not going to work out. And why is that? Where was that courage? Where was that brave? I'm sure it wasn't
Correct.
easy. Was it was it that you were trapped together and all of this
Correct.
other stuff came up? Like, I can't wait to hear those
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah. Well, that's my story over COVID. So we can talk about that on the side. But I think you summarized it great, right? It's about connection and having those conversations that people need to hear and people need to get out, because when we speak, we grow, right? We really open up our minds for that. So before we start wrapping up, how does Daisy recharge? How do you take care of yourself?
Okay. It's so funny. As I told you when we started, right? When we started, it was, I am solar powered. I think summer is definitely my fun season, but I do take time for myself. I post my daily delights. I do find happiness every day. It is a choice that I make.
That's
I
beautiful.
do not wake up happy every day. I do get criticized. They're like, come on, Daisy, life isn't always that good. No, it's not. But I choose to pick it to be that good, even on a bad day. So I find my daily delights. I do spend time in body, mind, and spirit. And I think part of finding a group of community, because I do want to do a shout out to Caroline de Posadas.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. She's been here.
Okay.
Grant has interviewed her before with her book.
With her and Core. Core came out of COVID, and she's one that has helped me to be accountable. Yeah. Right. So I've always, if I had to do one takeaway of when does Daisy recharge or have her best days, is when I move my body. If it's dancing, if it's going to the gym, if it's taking a walk, I will tell you, the days I don't move my body, I don't perform the same.
There you go. And that's in knowing yourself, right? And that's exactly why I asked. And that's the key for you. Move your body in order
and
to
my
be able
cafecito cubano,
of course.
Sure.
As a side note, yes, absolutely. So real quick top line questions. Name of your podcast.
This Girl.
Love it.
This Girl.
Where can we find it?
On all platforms, on Stitcher, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's pretty much everywhere.
Beautiful. How can we find you?
You could find me. I'm pretty active on Instagram.
Okay.
And on Instagram, I'm there as Pocketful of Daisy or Daisy Blanchard.
Beautiful. I love it. Daisy, it was beyond a privilege and joy to have you here today.
Oh, Gio, please, whenever you want. It's always a pleasure. Like, I could really talk health. I need health coaches, because as much as I tell you I move my body, it's not automatic yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not automatic yet. And I've questioned people who are in this field to say, when and how does it become automatic? Because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I still, it's not like,
yeah,
I'm not that girl.
Well, I will tell you in this last minute that we have is what I tell all of my clients.
Right. Give us your nugget of wisdom.
My nugget of wisdom would be that whatever you want in life that's good for you, it's going to take intention, and it's never going to be automatic. You will always have to work at it, right? Because the second that you sit and are comfortable, it can get taken away from you. So health is the same way. Once you reach that goal, it's not about reaching the goal. It's about never taking your eye off of it. And we know everything good takes work.
Yes.
So yes, I don't know if that answered your question, but in essence, it will never be automatic, So,
Oh, you got to figure that intention.
and that's where you figure it out, right? And you figure it out. So, again, thank you so much. Such a pleasure with our audience today. There you have it, a story, right? A grassroots, a girl from Miami, how she evolved, what she's doing today to impact the community. Check out her podcast, This Girl, and we'll see you next time on Recharge Your Life. Bye.